stranded. No water, no phone, just sand and sun burning my skin. Emily laughed it off as a prank. I didn't. My name's James, 27, a mechanic who fixes trucks for a living. I trusted Emily, my wife, with everything, until she left me in the desert to teach me a lesson. Her betrayal cut deeper than the heat. Now, I've learned, trust is fragile, but revenge is patient. The dashboard clock glowed, 7:42 p.m., the sun dipping low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and purple. Emily's hands gripped the wheel of our beat-up SUV, her knuckles pale against the leather. I leaned back in the passenger seat, my boots scuffing the floor mat, trying to shake the weight of another long week at the garage. My hands smelled of motor oil, no matter how hard I scrubbed. We'd planned this trip to reconnect, to patch the cracks in our marriage that had grown like weeds over the past year. "You're quiet tonight, James," Emily said, her voice light but edged, like a blade wrapped in silk. She glanced at me, her hazel eyes catching the last of the sunlight. "Work got you again?" I shrugged, my jaw tight. "Just tired. Been pulling axles all week." I didn't mention the overtime, the way I'd been grinding to cover our bills while she spent hours on her phone, scrolling through lives that weren't ours. She laughed, short and sharp. "You're always tired. Maybe if you weren't married to that garage, we'd actually talk." Her words landed like a jab to the ribs. I swallowed the urge to snap back, my fingers curling into my palms. The highway stretched on, endless asphalt and sagebrush blurring past. We were somewhere in Nevada, miles from anything that mattered. The radio crackled with some country song I didn't know, and Emily hummed along, her voice softer now, almost sweet. It reminded me of when we first met, back when her smile could pull me out of any bad day. But that was before the arguments, before the late-night silences that felt heavier than the trucks I fixed. "Let's make this fun," she said suddenly, her tone shifting, like she'd flipped a switch. "There's a dirt road up ahead. Want to explore?" She pointed to a faded sign for some desert trail, barely visible in the dusk. My stomach twisted, a faint warning I couldn't place. "It's getting dark, Em. Maybe we stick to the plan." She rolled her eyes, her lips curling into a smirk. "Come on, don't be boring. It's an adventure." Her words were playful, but there was something cold in them, something that made my pulse quicken. I rubbed the back of my neck, sweat already beating despite the cooling air. "All right," I said, forcing a grin. "Your call." She turned off the highway, tires crunching on gravel as we veered into the desert. The road narrowed, flanked by dunes and jagged rocks that loomed like silent witnesses. My phone had no signal out here, and the map on the dash was useless. Emily's hand stayed steady on the wheel, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You trust me, right?" she asked, her voice low, almost a whisper. I nodded, my throat dry. "Yeah, always." But as the desert swallowed us, the hum of the engine felt less like freedom and more like a countdown. My heart thudded, a quiet rhythm of doubt. What is she planning? Her question hung in the air, unanswered, as the car slowed to a stop. "Get out and check the tire, James," she said, her voice too calm. The SUV's taillights glowed red, fading into the desert dusk like dying embers. I stood frozen, my boots sinking into the sand, the air thick with dust from Emily's tires. "Check the tire," she'd said, her voice smooth as glass, pointing to the rear wheel. I'd stepped out, squinting at the rubber, seeing nothing wrong. Then the engine roared, and she was gone, her laughter slicing through the open window. "Lighten up, James. It's just a prank. A prank." My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out the silence of the desert. I spun around, scanning the horizon. Nothing but dunes and shadows stretching endlessly. My phone was in the car, along with our water, my wallet, everything. My throat tightened, already dry from the heat that lingered even as the sun dipped below the horizon. The air smelled of baked earth and betrayal. I shouted her name, my voice hoarse, cracking against the vast emptiness. "Emily." No answer, just the faint howl of wind over the sand. My hands shook as I patted my pockets, hoping for something. A granola bar, a bottle cap, anything. Nothing. My chest heaved, a mix of panic and rage bubbling up. How could she do this? We'd fought before, sure, but this was cruel. I started walking, my boots kicking up dust with every step. The desert was a maze of shadows now, the last light fading fast. My mind replayed her words from earlier, the jabs about my long hours, the way she'd smirked when she suggested this adventure. Had she planned this? The thought hit like a wrench to the gut, heavy and cold. I'd trusted her, loved her, even when things got rough. But that laugh, sharp, mocking, told me something had changed. My mouth was parched, my tongue sticking to the roof. I tried to focus, to guess how far we'd driven from the highway. 10 miles. 20. The stars were out now, cold and useless above me. Each step felt heavier, my legs burning from the effort. I remembered our wedding, her hand in mine, promising forever. Now, forever felt like this. Alone, abandoned, with nothing but sand under my feet. I stumbled over a rock, catching myself on my palms. The grit stung my skin, and I cursed under my breath. My heart pounded, not just from exhaustion, but from the realization sinking in. She'd left me to die. Maybe not literally, but the intent was there, in her laugh, in the way she didn't look back. My fists clenched, nails digging into my palms. If I got out of this, she'd learn what it felt like to be left with nothing. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, time blurred in the dark. My throat burned, my vision swam, but I kept moving, driven by a fire I hadn't felt in years. Emily thought she'd broken me. She thought I'd beg, or crumble. She was wrong. A faint light flickered in the distance, maybe a town, maybe salvation. But as I staggered toward it, one thought burned brighter than the desert sun. Emily would pay for this. The desert stretched endless, a cruel oven even in the dark. My boots dragged through the sand, each step a fight against legs that screamed to quit. My mouth was a desert of its own, tongue swollen, lips cracked and tasting of salt and dust. The stars above mocked me, cold and distant, offering no direction. I've been walking for hours since Emily's taillights vanished, her laughter still ringing in my skull like a bad song. My shirt clung to my back, soaked with sweat despite the night's chill. Every breath burned, but my mind churned faster than my body. I saw us at our wedding, her eyes bright, promising love. I saw us last month, her slamming the bedroom door after another fight about money, about time, about everything I couldn't fix. Had she always been this cruel? Or had I been too blind to see it? My chest tightened, not just from thirst, but from the weight of her betrayal. She'd left me out here, no water, no phone, like I was nothing. A faint glow flickered on the horizon, a gas station, maybe a town. My heart thudded, hope and rage mixing like oil and water. I stumbled, my knees hitting the sand, palms scraping against rock. Blood trickled from a cut, warm and sticky, but I pushed up, driven by something harder than pain. Emily thought this would break me. She thought I'd crawl back, begging. The thought of her smirk made my fists clench, nails biting into my palms. I kept moving, one foot in front of the other, the glow growing closer. My mind raced through memories, her soft touch when we were broke, sharing cheap coffee and dreams, her cold voice last week, snapping that I never listened. Maybe I hadn't, but I was listening now, to the silence of the desert, to the truth she'd revealed. She wanted to humiliate me, to prove she could control me. My jaw tightened, teeth grinding. She'd miscalculated. The lights grew sharper, a small town, a diner's neon sign buzzing in the distance. My legs shook, but I forced them forward, each step a vow. I'd survive this. I'd make it back. And when I did, Emily would learn what it felt like to lose something. My hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from the fire building inside me. I trusted her with my life, and she'd thrown it away for a laugh. I reached the diner, collapsing against the door, the bell jangling as I stumbled inside. A waitress gasped, her eyes wide. "You okay, hon?" she asked, rushing over. I nodded, my voice a rasp. "Water," I managed. She handed me a glass, and I drank, the cold burning my throat. As I sat there, the room spinning, I saw Emily's face in my mind. Not the woman I married, but the one who'd left me to die. The waitress asked, "What happened to you out there?" I didn't answer. All I could think was, Emily's prank was over, but mine was just beginning. The front door creaked as I stepped into our house, my boots still gritty with desert sand. Emily was in the kitchen, humming, stirring a pot of pasta like nothing had happened. The smell of garlic and tomatoes hit me, familiar, but it twisted my stomach. 24 hours ago, I was choking on dust, her laughter echoing in my head. Now, she glanced up, her hazel eyes wide with fake concern. "James, you're back." I was so worried. Worried, I repeated, my voice flat, leaning against the counter. My hands shook, but I shoved them in my pockets. "You left me out there, Em." She laughed, a high, nervous sound, waving a hand. "Oh, come on, it was a joke. You're fine, aren't you?" Her smile was too bright, like a cracked mask. My jaw clenched, teeth grinding, but I forced a nod. If I snapped now, she'd see it coming. I needed time, evidence, a plan. I sat at the table, watching her move, every gesture a lie. My body ached from the desert trek, blisters on my feet, a cut on my palm still stinging. But the real pain was deeper, a raw wound in my chest. I'd loved her, built a life with her, and she'd left me to die for a laugh. My fingers twitched, itching to confront her, but I swallowed it down. Patience. That night, while she slept, I borrowed her phone. She left it unlocked, careless, like she thought I was too broken to fight back. I scrolled through her texts, my heart pounding. There it was, a message to her friend Tara. "Left James in the desert, LOL. He's such a bore. Needed a wake-up call." My blood ran cold, my grip tightening on the phone. I screenshotted it, sent it to myself, deleted the evidence from her messages. The next day, I went to work, my hand steady on wrenches but my mind racing. Emily thought she could play me, thought I'd stay quiet like always. She didn't know I was watching, listening, collecting. At the garage, I checked our bank account on my lunch break. Something felt off. Our savings were lower than they should be. I dug deeper, finding transactions I didn't recognize. Spa days, new clothes, a weekend trip she'd never mentioned. My breath caught, rage simmering. She wasn't just cruel, she was bleeding us dry. I came home that evening, my face a mask of calm. "Good day?" I asked, setting my keys down, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "Same old," she said, flipping through her phone, not even looking up. Her nonchalance was a slap, but I smiled, my mind already mapping out the next step. She thought she'd won, thought I was still the trusting fool who'd followed her into the desert. As she scrolled, oblivious, I slipped my phone out, staring at the screenshot of her text. The game was on, and she had no idea I was playing to win. The kitchen table was littered with bills, a half-empty coffee mug sitting between us like a silent witness. Emily leaned back in her chair, her phone glowing in her hand, scrolling like she hadn't a care in the world. I stood by the sink, drying my hands on a towel, the rough fabric scraping against the cut on my palm from the desert. My heart pounded, but my face stayed still, a mask I'd perfected over the past week. I'd seen her texts, her betrayal in black and white, and now I knew about the money. Thousands drained from our joint account for her girls' trips and designer bags. I said, my voice low, casual, like I was asking about dinner. "You been shopping lately?" Account's looking a little light. Her fingers froze on her phone, her eyes flicking up to meet mine. For a split second, I saw it. Panic, raw and unfiltered, before she buried it under a smile. "What?" "Oh, just some stuff for the house. You know, keeping things nice." Her voice was too sweet, like syrup covering a lie. My stomach twisted, but I nodded, letting her think I bought it. I didn't. I'd spent nights digging through bank statements, cross-referencing dates with her stories. Spa weekends she claimed were free from friends' invite, paid for with our savings. A work conference last month. A lie. She'd been at a resort, photos on her private social media, I'd cracked into with a guest password. My hands shook as I folded the towel, the rage bubbling so close to the surface I could taste it, metallic and sharp. That evening, I tested her again. Tara called. I lied, watching her over the rim of my beer bottle. Said something about you joking about me, in the desert. My tone was light, but my eyes locked on hers, searching for the crack. Her face paled, just for a moment, before she laughed too loud. Tara's got a big mouth. It was nothing, James. Just a dumb joke. She reached for my hand, her fingers cold against my knuckles, but I pulled back, pretending to grab my phone. Her touch felt like a snake's, and I wasn't falling for it anymore. At the garage the next day, I sat in my truck on break, staring at the screenshots I'd saved, her texts, her bank transfers, her lies piling up like evidence in a courtroom. My chest burned, not just with anger, but with the weight of being played for a fool. I'd worked overtime for us, for our future, while she'd spent it all, laughing behind my back. My fingers tightened around my phone, the screen cracking slightly under the pressure. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make sure everyone saw her for what she was. As I drove home, my plan took shape. A public stage, her lies exposed for all to see. But could I really destroy the woman I'd once loved? The community center smelled of cheap coffee and polished wood, the kind of place where birthdays and anniversaries were celebrated. I'd rented it for the night, telling Emily it was a surprise party for her promotion at the boutique. She'd bought it, her eyes lighting up at the thought of being the center of attention. My hands were steady as I set up the projector, but my pulse hammered, a drumbeat of anticipation. The room was filling with her friends, her co-workers, even her boss, people who'd see her for what she really was. I'd spent days planning, meticulous, as if I were rebuilding an engine. The screenshots of her texts were backed up on a USB drive, her mocking LOL about leaving me in the desert, sent to Tara and others. Bank statements showing her draining our account were printed, stacked neatly in a folder. I'd even found a grainy video from a gas station camera near the desert, showing her car speeding off while I stood there, a speck in the dust. My throat tightened as I tested the projector, the images flashing across the screen. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Emily arrived, her heels clicking on the floor, her smile wide and oblivious. "James, this is too much," she said, squeezing my arm, her perfume sharp in my nose. I forced a grin, my jaw aching. "Only the best for you," I said, the words bitter on my tongue. Her friends swarmed her, chattering, while I slipped to the back, checking the setup one last time. My hands shook, not from fear but from the weight of what was coming. I mingled, shaking hands, making small talk with her boss, a stern woman named Linda who'd always seemed to like me. "Emily's lucky to have you," Linda said, her voice warm. I nodded, my stomach twisting. She wouldn't say that in an hour. My eyes kept darting to Emily, laughing in the crowd, her confidence a fragile shell I was about to shatter. As the lights dimmed for the tribute I'd promised, I stood by the projector, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might crack my ribs. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head, picturing her face when the truth hit. The room quieted, all eyes on the screen. I pressed play, and the first image appeared, her text to Tara, blown up for everyone to see. "Left James in the desert, LOL. He's such a bore." A gasp rippled through the crowd, and Emily's laugh faltered. My fingers gripped the remote, sweat beading on my forehead. I glanced at her, catching the moment her smile died, her eyes wide with panic. She looked at me, a silent plea, but I didn't flinch. This was her doing, her lies, her betrayal. The next slide was ready, bank statements, proof of her theft. My chest burned with a mix of triumph and pain. The room held its breath as the next slide loaded. Emily's secrets about to spill like blood. Would she beg or would she run? The projector's light cut through the dim room, each slide a hammer blow to Emily's carefully built facade. The first text, her mocking LOL about leaving me in the desert, hung on the screen, the words glowing like an accusation. Whispers rippled through the crowd, her friends' faces twisting from shock to disgust. Emily stood frozen, her wine glass trembling in her hand, her eyes darting to me, wide with fear. My chest was tight, a mix of rage and sorrow, but I kept my face stone cold, my thumb on the remote, ready for the next strike. "James, stop," she whispered, her voice cracking as she stepped toward me. The room was silent, every eye on us. I didn't move, didn't answer. The next slide clicked into place, bank statements, rows of transactions showing thousands drained from our account. Spa trips, clothes, a weekend getaway she'd lied about. A low murmur spread, and I caught Linda, her boss, narrowing her eyes, her lips a thin line. "This isn't true," Emily said, louder now, her voice shaking as she turned to the crowd. "He's lying. He's making this up." But her words sounded hollow, desperate. I pressed play on the gas station video, grainy but clear, Her SUV speeding off, me a small figure left in the dust. A collective gasp filled the room, and Tara, her best friend, covered her mouth, stepping back like Emily was poison. My hands shook, but I kept them in my pockets, my breathing steady despite the fire in my veins. I'd loved this woman, shared a bed, a life, dreams. Now I was tearing it all down, and it hurt as much as it healed. You called it a joke, I said, my voice low, cutting through the silence. Was it funny when I was dying out there? Emily's face crumpled, tears streaking her makeup. James, please, she choked out, but I clicked to the final slide, a screenshot of her text to another friend. He'll never leave me. Too weak. The room erupted in murmurs, and Linda stood, her face hard. Emily, we need to talk. Monday. My office. The words were a death knell. Her job was done. I turned off the projector, the screen going dark, but the weight of her betrayal lingered in the air. Friends avoided her eyes, some slipping out the door, their whispers like knives. Emily sank into a chair, sobbing, her hands covering her face. I felt a pang, sharp and unwanted, but it didn't stop me. She'd made her choice in the desert, and I'd made mine here. As I walked to the door, my boots heavy on the wood floor, I heard her call my name, a broken sound. I didn't turn back. The air outside was cool, the night sky vast, like the desert that had nearly killed me. I'd exposed her, stripped away her lies, her reputation, her world. But the victory tasted bitter, like dust on my tongue. I stepped into the night, free but scarred. Had I gone too far, or had she pushed me to it? The for sale sign creaked in front of our house, the paint chipped from too many desert summers. I stood on the porch, keys in my hand, the last of my things packed into my truck. Emily was gone, moved out after the community center, her belongings cleared in a hurry. No note, no goodbye. The house felt empty, like the hollow in my chest where love used to be. My boots scuffed the wood floor, each step echoing the finality of it all. Word spread fast. Her friends cut her off, their group chat silent after my slideshow, burn her lies to ash. Linda fired her the Monday after, citing conduct unbecoming, when the boutique's clients started whispering. I heard she was staying with Tara, but even that was shaky. Tara's face that night had been one of betrayal, too. Emily's world had collapsed, her social life a ghost town, her reputation dust. My hands tightened on the keys, the metal biting my palm. I'd wanted this, planned it, but the victory felt heavy, like a wrench I couldn't put down. I sold the house for a fair price, enough to start over. The bank account was frozen while I sorted out her theft. Lawyers were involved now, and she'd face her own reckoning there. I moved into a small apartment near the garage, the kind of place where the walls smelled of old paint and new beginnings. At night, I'd sit on the balcony, a beer in hand, staring at the stars that had watched me stumble through the desert. They hadn't saved me then, and they didn't comfort me now. My mind kept circling back to her, her laugh, her tears, the way she'd crumbled under the projector's light. I'd loved her once, enough to ignore the cracks, the fights, the way she'd chip away at me. But the desert changed me. Her joke had stripped away the man who'd take her jabs in silence. I wasn't that James anymore. My jaw clenched, remembering her text. He's too weak. She'd been wrong, and she paid for it. But as I unpacked my tools in the new place, arranging them on a workbench like I was rebuilding myself, I felt the weight of what I'd done. Revenge had felt right, necessary, like air after drowning. Yet, it left a mark, on her, on me. I'd exposed her, torn her world apart, but I carried the scars too. The cut on my palm from the desert had healed, but the ache in my chest hadn't. I took a sip of beer, the bottle cold against my lips. The night was quiet, the city hummed distant. I was free, free of her lies, her cruelty, her shadow. But freedom came with a price, and I'd paid in full. As I set the bottle down, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk, James." Was it her?